Welcome everyone to our Sunday Zoom service for the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Easton. And it's really great to see all of you on screen this morning. It's been great to chat with a lot of you first. You know, it'll be wonderful to be with you in person for a Sunday service, maybe in a few weeks. But for now, you know, it's really great to be able to conduct the Sunday service in my slippers. I'm wearing my slippers this morning. Some of you may be in your pajamas, and that's good too. I'm joined this morning by co-host and service leader, Robert Forloney. Rob, could you unmute and say hello so everybody can see you?
How is everyone today? Thank you for joining us. We greatly appreciate it and look forward to the conversation.
So Rob and I are members of the UUFE board, and this morning we're going to be leading a discussion a little bit later about the personal missions and visions that each one of us has, and how these flow together into a mission and a vision for UUFE. We hope this exploration and this discussion that we have this morning is going to be helpful for you along your own spiritual path, and also in our journey together as a community. I want to mention too that our service this morning benefits, as you've seen already this morning, those of you who signed on a few minutes early, from the technical support and also the music support that's been provided by Bozena Lamparska. Bozena coached us, me especially, this morning on which Zoom buttons to push at the right times, and she's going to be shining the spotlight here and there as she just did. And she's going to be reminding us sometimes to mute or unmute when that's needed as well. Now, Bozena might also jump in to remind maybe Rob, but especially me, because I'm an amateur at this, to click this or that Zoom button to keep the service running smoothly. So thank you, Bozena, for helping us in this way. Now I'm going to set the tone of our service by lighting our chalice and sharing some words, these guiding words from the Stillwater Meditation Practice Center in Silver Spring. Setting intention, at least in the Buddhist tradition, is quite different from making goals. It is not oriented toward a future outcome. Instead, setting intention is a path or a practice that is focused on how you are being in the present moment. Your attention is on the ever-present now in the constantly changing flow of life. We set our intention based on understanding what matters most to each of us and making a commitment to align our worldly actions with our inner values. Now I'm going to try to share my screen for our first musical number. This is a rendition of the song, Building a New Way.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. we can feel our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, the world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. Feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. Feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way.
Well, I hope you saw and heard some music. I, of course, lost contact with you during the duration. Did that turn out okay?
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Rob. So let's see. We want to take a couple minutes now for Christina Droston, our board president, to share some announcements with us. Christina, are you out there?
Yep, I'm here, and I just want to take a second to first and foremost thank everybody for coming together last night for virtual game night, for everybody who made it. I think more than anything, it was just really neat to see a number of people we don't always get to see often enough, and to do it in a relaxed way and have fun. Also, this was an important fundraiser for UUFE, and I'm super impressed to say that we have exceeded our goal. We've brought in more than $5,000, which is just really exciting and impressive. So well done. Another part of the fundraising event was donating cans of paint, which volunteers are going to use to help spruce up the building. So well done, everybody. The other couple announcements I wanted to say is that we have a bonfire coming up Saturday night, May 29th, outside at UUFE. Also, we have our annual meeting for UUFE Sunday, June 6th. And we need everybody to attend that. Please look for information through email and also snail mail. There's some very important information, including our budget as we move into this next year. Again, that date is June 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina, for sharing that with us. Now, what better way to remind ourselves of our UUFE mission and vision and our own personal intention than to recite together the covenant of our fellowship? I'm going to share my screen again and put this text on. This is something we've done traditionally in our in-person services. So I invite you to recite this with me in unison. At the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Easton,
We
we nurture spiritual and intellectual growth for all ages, and to be actively involved in community outreach and service, cherishing our diversity and celebrating our oneness with all humanity. We covenant to support each other in the spirit of compassion, respect, and love. Thank you. You know, it's our stories, our personal stories that bind us together as a religious community. The stories of our lives in the past before we met each other for the first time here at UUFE. And more recently, the stories that unfold as we live out our lives day by day. One of the most important parts of our Sunday services, I think, is the time that we take to share joys and sorrows that we've experienced in the preceding weeks. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Rob now to lead us in the sharing of our joys and sorrows.
As Don said, this is one of the pieces I think that's very special for our membership. And I look forward to the service every week to hear from people. We've all been through an extraordinary set of circumstances this past year with a variety of different challenges, but also have the opportunity to share some hopeful things as well. So there's a number of joys and sorrows that people probably are sharing close to their hearts. And we just want to make sure that we think about them as well and incorporate those into our community going forward. Thank you very much all for sharing. We greatly appreciate it. Don?
Thanks, Rob, for leading that for us, and thanks to all of you for sharing your joys and sorrows this morning. Now, our Sunday sermon is going to be a little bit different this morning. It's going to be a little bit like a panel discussion, but it's a panel discussing some of the things that matter the most to us. You may remember that a few years ago, we started to explore this idea, what matters most to each one of us, with a series of interviews that we did through our weekly newsletter. You may remember those 5 big questions interviews. Well, for our discussion this morning about the UUFE vision and mission, we've invited 3 of those members who took part in those interviews to return to the stage, so to speak, and talk specifically about their personal missions and visions. So I'd like to ask Jean Rhian and Mary Dunlavey and Lauren Harton, if you could all 3 unmute yourselves. And let's go one at a time. Lauren, could you go first and just speak up and say hello and wave so you pop up on the screen? Everybody can see who you are. Hey, Lauren, are you there? Can you unmute and say hello?
Can you really? Oh, there.
Don,
Okay.
I'm trying to get somebody else on Zoom.
Oh, there's,
so give me a minute.
Lauren's doing tech support. So there's Lauren multitasking. Thanks, Lauren.
Oh.
And Mary, would you do that for us also, please? Say hello.
Hi, I'm Mary. Hi, good morning.
Thanks, Mary. And Jean.
Hi, I'm Jean.
Thank you, Jean. So this is our panel for our discussion this morning. We're going to take about 12 to 15 minutes to briefly explore 2 questions. Now, these are questions we sent out on our newsletter this week. I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see if I can figure this out here real quickly. So here are the questions.
He said 2.
Right here. So you see that okay?
We do, Don. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, for that feedback. So the first question was, what was your personal mission and vision the day that you graduated from high school? Age 18, newly minted graduate with a diploma, walking off the stage. What was your vision? Then maybe a trickier question, how did that change over time? And maybe did it change in ways that led you specifically to UUFE? Now, it would be great to pass the microphone around and give everybody in our meeting this morning a chance to answer these questions. It would be really interesting. We won't have time for that, but there are 2 opportunities where you could do that. Right after the service, we're going to do coffee hour and continue our discussion about mission and vision, and be a chance maybe for you to share your own stories there. But also, if you would like to, you can email us at this email address that I have on the screen, mission18@uufeaston.org. And if you write to us, we'll compile those, gather some of these stories into maybe a future article in the newsletter, or perhaps a service in the future. So we encourage you to do that as well. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And so now we're going to pass the microphone around in the same order that we introduced our 3 guests. It'll be Lauren, and then Mary, and then Jean. We would ask each of you to answer the first question first, each one in turn. That is, what was your personal mission and vision, age 18, the day you graduated from high school? Lauren, do you want to go first?
Well, and I apologize. I was trying to get another member online while you were introducing me. So hi, I'm Lauren, and age 18, as I left high school, I headed to Smith College with really short hair and a nose ring, and ready to be queer as queer could be up in Northampton, Massachusetts. And yeah, I thought I was going to be a physician who was going to travel the world and cure illnesses. Yeah, it was totally different. UU was solidly a part of my mission at that age. Grew up Unitarian, and I think felt especially empowered to be in the world and really out and really gay at a young age because of my UU upbringing. Yeah, and then that was very challenged in college, which was fun for me. So very different me than what ended up now at 40.
Thank you, Lauren, for sharing that. You say very different. I'd say you are empowered, and you demonstrate that every day for us. Thank you so much.
Just a different version of professional me.
Thank you, Lauren. Let's see, Mary, I think you're next. What was it like? What was your mission vision at age 18, Mary?
Well, I remember it perfectly because it was just last week, wasn't it? We all sat around talking about where are we going to be in 5 years. I remember it distinctly, and signing each other's yearbooks. I came out of a traditional model. I was headed for college, and there weren't as many options for young women then. So I was going to be a nurse because I couldn't be a doctor. So I was going to college and away from home, live in a dorm, get friends, study hard, be smart, because you had to get a good job. So that was my mission in life. And that hasn't changed a great deal, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that down the line.
I think we share a lot in common with you, a lot of us with you in that, Mary. Thanks for sharing that. Jean, what was it like for you? Age 18, mission, vision.
I have to say I was utterly clueless. And that's mostly continued. So I was in a big fight with my parents. My parents wanted me to go to college. I didn't want to go. I wanted to work and try to figure out what in the world I wanted to do. They said, you're 17, you do what we tell you. And so I spent the next year or so, getting up the courage to defy that. So that was pretty much a wasted year. Lots of fun though. And then I have to say the first time I thought seriously about mission was after retirement. And I would describe my life as kind of a pinball existence almost, but having different goals and different ideas at different times, and in a lot of ways succeeding in the mission of the moment.
That's really interesting, Jean, your comment about the timetable. I think in the email that we sent out, we were talking about, well, what transition did you experience at age 30? And Lauren mentioned age 40, but yours came at retirement.
Well, I would say there were significant transitions going along, and I don't know if we're talking about 30 yet, but 30 was a big turning point.
Well, let's go there. Let's start with Lauren again, going back and around the circle again. What changed over time, Lauren?
So college was interesting for me because so Smith College is a very gay, lesbian culture college. And I went there already knowing I was gay. And then I got to college and was basically told by the gay community that I didn't fit because I didn't fit any of the stereotypes and the different queer culture of Smith College. I was kind of this mainstream, not so radical, even though I had my nose pierced and short hair and was flying rainbow flags left and right. I didn't fit the gay culture of Smith. And then I failed anatomy and physiology. So I was not going to be a doctor. So I actually dropped out of college because college really messed with my head and refound my direction by being a doula and being with pregnant women and being in healthcare in a healthy way, as opposed to in healthcare in a unhealthy way. So I found that my role was to help women be healthy, as opposed to just kind of fix their illnesses, which is what I thought I was going to do. I thought I'd be like an infectious disease and curing, some sort of coronavirus or something, but that was just not my role. So it wasn't 30, but it was definitely, very quickly thereafter that I was redirected in and who I thought I was going to be in life.
Thank you, Lauren. You got us thinking about our own changes. You know, Lauren, I failed accounting 101 in college. That was what I wanted to do. I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I failed it.
Agreed. I was like, oh, here's a little sign. Maybe you're not going to be a physician. I am happy I went on and did pass anatomy and physiology in graduate school and become a nurse practitioner. But it was a good redirecting, even though it hurt pretty hard in the moment.
Right. Thanks for sharing. Hey, Mary, how about you? What changed for you over time?
Well, after graduation, I was brought up on a model where you have to work hard, save your money, and life will come to you perfectly. Well, sometime around 30, I realized it wasn't all that great, working, saving. But I was giving back as a professional nurse, and I realized I could maybe combine travel and moving around from physician to physician a little bit using my nursing. Combined with a nursing shortage, it worked, and I moved pretty much all over the country and worked in all different kinds of environments. So I could give back through my profession, and I felt fortunate to be able to do that. But I also started realizing that maybe I deserved a little more in life too than working. So travel was it, and trying to learn and experience life, feel it, good and bad, just feel it, live it. And that was my mission and my vision around 30 and 40 on.
Thank you, Mary. You know, thanks for sharing. You know, all of your experiences helped us look back on our own experiences over time. And I think, you know, if you're like me, for others here in our meeting this morning, had our interest peaked about the past of you three. And in fact, if you want to, those who are in our meeting today, if you go back to the email that went out, the UU Live, you'll see there's a link from Lauren and Mary and Jean, and you can click those links and see their interviews from a few years ago where they talk about other big questions. How have they made their living? What's the biggest thing they've done? And what's their next big thing, to kind of get to know them better as well. So I think that most of us here this morning remember back also to back in early 2019 when we were all invited to take part in a series of meetings and discussions about this very thing. How our individual missions and visions inspire and enable sort of the collective mission and vision for all of UUFE. I want to turn the microphone over now back to Rob to take a look at where we've been with this discussion, defining the UUFE mission and vision, and where we're going next. So please, Rob, take it away.
Thank you, Don. So as Don was explaining, this is a process that's been going on for some time. We've been engaging with stakeholders, various community members, individuals who've participated in UU in a variety of different ways for quite some time. And part of the issue is that we've been obviously impacted by COVID. So what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about the process, how we got to where we are, review the drafts of proposed mission and vision statements that we currently have, and then we're going to open up a conversation during the coffee hour. So we welcome everyone to participate in that conversation after the coffee hour. So this is more of a presentation of the work and getting people to understand the process and looking at the proposed statements. And then the coffee hour is where we're going to have a facilitated conversation where we could really get input. So essentially what we have right now are proposed statements that we want everyone to take a look at, reflect on, review, and then in the future, when we get together, hopefully in the fall in person, we'll actually have a formal vote. So this is still an ongoing process. It's a long one, but it's important. And the reason for that is that mission and vision statements should be the driving force behind fellowships. And this is something that takes place at a variety of different organizations, nonprofits, and everything that we do should come back to the mission and vision. So when we're thinking about our efforts, how we align resources, when we're looking at staffing, when we're looking at the annual budget, everything should really reflect the mission and vision. And that's why it's so important to come to consensus as a community as to what our mission and vision are. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the background in terms of this overall process and then share some information with you before we look at the actual proposed statements. So my team is actually the second team that has been working on this process. We were gifted a tremendous amount of information, a plethora of data that had been collected by an initial team that started doing this work more than a year and a half, 2 years ago. Actually, with COVID now, it's probably closer to 2 years. And the idea behind this, and we'd like to thank Kathy, Dave, Colleen, and Michelle for all of their work, was they were going out and engaging individuals in particular through listening sessions, through surveys, trying to get as much input as we possibly could about what people really wanted from UUFE. And what they found was that people wanted many, many different things. And that's not unusual when you have many, many different people. Everyone has different interests, different prior knowledge, different biases, and trying to come up with general consensus is something that's somewhat difficult to do. So we were able to engage people through a number of different sessions, as I said, and through the surveys to collect information from people. And what they found was that we were somewhat all over the place. So they generated a number of statements, and there was also a bit of kind of difference in terms of the best statement that we should have for a mission statement. Many people wanted very short and succinct ones, while other people wanted much more lengthy and specific information. And that's not unusual either. I spend a lot of time working with nonprofits, the National Park Service, and cultural institutions, and we find this when we're working together with a panel that you have different interests and different needs. So essentially, we as the second team generated a lot of information ourselves, but we were going back and reviewing the material that we had given. So the second team was Lauren, Don, myself, John, and Dave Moore actually stayed on as a bridge between the two different sessions. So essentially, we were given a tremendous amount of material. Literally on the OneDrive, I think we had scores of documents. We looked through everything that people had. We looked at the input, we looked at the proposed statements, and we started having conversations with regards to how to go about doing this work. In addition to that, we met with the board, and one of the reasons we did this is we wanted to talk about the overall goals and objectives of the process itself, what we were hoping to achieve, because there's many different ways of creating mission and vision statements and thinking about the end purpose of these different statements. And then through those conversations, we got back together as our team, reviewed the material, and then we tried to align this with what UUA has done over time as well. So I'll just show you a couple of documents really quickly to give you a sense of some of the things that we were looking at. So essentially, we had mission and vision statements from UUFE from the past, and we were looking at these materials and reviewing what our specific community had used and adopted in the past. But in addition to that, we had a plethora of different documents and statements that we collected of mission and vision statements from UU around the country. And you can see from these mission and vision statements, there are many different ways of actually taking this type of work. Some are short, some are lengthy, some are just bullet statements, some are individual sentences, some go into much more detail. So essentially from the UUA perspective, we could do just about anything we really wanted. Obviously, we're looking at things that were similar, like our partnership with Chester River. And we're also looking at organizations that had a similar size with regards to our organization, or were similar in terms of demographics, looking at rural populations as well. So there's a lot of different things that we had with regards to the work that was there. I'll show you the slideshow now. So essentially from this work, the idea was, again, generating as much information and input that we could from the membership, going through all the materials that we had, and then with the board, thinking about the overall purpose of the work itself. We're going to continue on this process. We're not done, as I said. We're going to have a conversation, as I said, after this in the coffee hour. We're also going to hold an additional Zoom session for people who weren't able to participate today. This will come up somewhat in the annual meeting on June 6th. And then we're hoping to have an official vote in the fall when we can all gain together. So people are just being introduced to this right now, but we're hoping to get input from people as we go on. As I said, one of the issues that we had was that people couldn't agree on one specific mission statement. And one of the things that I found working with different organizations in the past is you don't have to have it only one particular way. And one of the ways of doing this is looking at different types of statements and scaffolding the information. So essentially, we could have a very short and succinct mission statement that met the needs of the people who wanted something that was concise and to the point. We could have a more in-depth vision statement that talked about the actual actions that we're going to take, what we envisioned for our fellowship, and the various types of actions that we wanted to see taking place in the community. And we could also have a separate value statement. So a lot of museums, cultural institutions are adopting this because they're able to use these statements in different ways for different groups. And we thought this was the best way forward for our fellowship as well, to have a short mission statement that everyone could memorize and know from the top of their heads, have a mission statement that really was going to show the energy of the work that we were doing. A vision statement that really talked about how we were going to align our resources, and then the value statements that were coming from UUA itself. So the actual values of UUA was going to be generated from them. And one of the things that's really crucial behind this is thinking about the audiences and the uses. So what we're going to be using our mission and vision statements for are different depending on the group that's using it. And we wanted to try to meet the needs of all these different groups as well. So it's going to be an internal management tool, something that can be used by the staff and by the board to really align itself in terms of strategic planning and being very intentional about how we strategize things. It could be an assessment and an evaluative piece where we really think about what we're doing well, where we need to improve things, going back to the mission and vision statement as a means of making sure that we're aligning our resources appropriately. It's helping to keep our various committees focused. With the variety of pods that we have now, we want to make sure that we're all working in concert holistically across the community and not at different ends or being redundant. So the mission and vision will really help us focus in that way. And also we want it to be a public facing statement for recruitment. Obviously we want to attract new audiences, new membership, and try to diversify who's coming to the UUFE. And so one of the things that's really important about the mission and vision is really showing what we stand for and what our values are. Again, in terms of audiences, we have different audiences for these different purposes. So the mission and vision statement is important for the UUFE board and for leadership, pod leaders, committee leaders, people who are participating in a leadership position. For our current membership and supporters, so people who are current members who are already signed and part of the process. The general public, so citizens of Talbot County as well as the surrounding region, so we can identify who we are, show our values, and people understand what UUFE stands for, but also potentially to attract new people. And then also currently our virtual audiences. We understand with services such as the one today being recorded and being publicly shown internationally around the globe that we have a distant audience that's interacting with UUFE online. So these are the different target audiences that we had in mind when we're generating the mission and vision statements themselves. So our proposed new mission statement is, as you see here, UUFE is an open religious community that strives for social justice, values diversity, cares for one another, and protects our natural environment. These were the four things that came up time and time again from all of the material that that initial team gathered from the listening sessions in the surveys, from the conversations that we had with members, from the discussions we had with the board, essentially striving for social justice, valuing diversity, caring for one another, and also protecting our environment were four anchor things that we thought were absolutely essential to incorporate into our mission statement. And again, this was supposed to be succinct and short, so we tried to keep it as concise as possible, but very to the point of what we were striving for and what we want to achieve. In terms of the vision statement is longer, as I said. This was a way that we could balance the needs of the people who wanted a short statement with the needs of people who are looking for a longer statement. And the longer statement states, the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Easton welcomes questioning minds, diverse identities, and expansive hearts to strive to be a beacon for independent thought, progressive change, and spiritual growth. Through caring for one another, our communities, and the environment, we seek to create a more just and peaceful world while celebrating our oneness with all humanity. Through worship, affinity groups, religious education for all ages, music, and other experiences, we provide opportunities for engaging with open-minded individuals. As spiritual and social justice leaders for the Midshore of Maryland, we seek to meet the evolving needs of our rural community. So as you can see, the vision statement packs in a lot. There's a tremendous amount here in terms of what our vision for UUFE in our community is, how we perceive our role and our responsibility within the community, and specifically talking about some of the actions that we're going to take. So essentially, while the mission statement talks more about our purpose and our goals or objectives, the vision statement is really talking about how we're going to use our energy, the way that we're going to deal with our capacity, and how we're going to align our resources to deal with specific things. And again, as we talked about with those initial statements, there are many, many people who wanted many, many different things. This is the way that we were able to boil down the main patterns and trends that we identified. So welcoming people is really key. Being sure that we're diversifying the groups that are here, and that we're trying to show that what we're doing is creating a caring community for the Midshore region. The other thing is talking about independent thought, progressive change, and spiritual growth. This was really a key thing that we heard from people over and over again, that they wanted a community that was going to be representative, that really shows our values and really provides an opportunity for intellectual growth as well as spiritual growth. And then in addition to that, again, we're caring for each other, we're caring for the community as a whole, and we're also caring for the environment. So we're not just focusing on ourselves and our community, but we're looking outward. We're looking how we can impact the individuals around us. And then in addition to that, we talk about a more just and peaceful world. Social justice in action was something that came up time and time again, not just being passive, but thinking about what we can do actively to be agents of change within the community itself. And then the next sentence talks more about some of the things that we're currently doing, some of the things that we're undertaking currently, such as worship. Our affinity groups are the different types of groups that gather at UUFE for different reasons. The men's group, people who are gathering for singing and song. The religion for all ages, which is really crucial, really thinking about this as an opportunity for learning from pre-K all the way up to senior citizens, that everyone feels welcome and is participating in religious education through the work that we do. Music and other experiences that we have for providing opportunities for people to come in, convening conversations and discussions, everything from OWL to our game nights. There's ways of engaging people and making them feel welcome. And then in addition to that, being tied to spiritual and social justice in the area. So again, this is a proposed statement. This is not anything that is set in stone. We've already heard some comments about tweaking things here and there. And the idea is that we can make changes and adjustments accordingly. And what we're going to do in the coffee hour is talk with people about how they can do that. All of this information is going to be made public, again, through the newsletter, through the annual meeting, and other ways as well, so people can think about if this is what really reflects your interests, your needs, your expectations of UUFE. And then the final statement that I mentioned in terms of values is essentially the 7 principles from UUA. So these are not values that we created, but these are the values that we adopted nationally and internationally from our overall umbrella organization. So the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of democratic process within our congregations and the society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And there's actually talk of adopting an 8th value. So if that 8th value is formally adopted by UUA, that would be added to this value statement as well. So as you can see, what we're trying to do is reach consensus with all the varieties of different types of stakeholders and community members' interests and needs, finding a way to incorporate the target audiences that we're trying to attract, and also meeting the different objectives and purposes for missions and vision statements. So we think scaffolding this way in a short mission statement, a more lengthy vision statement, and the value statement really allows us the opportunity to engage people in multiple ways, and that makes it accessible to a diverse audience depending on what their interests and needs might be. Next, as I said, is using this for strategic planning. So essentially, the reason that a mission and vision statement are key is that you want to have a clear set of goals and objectives. So when you start working on strategic planning, you can think about how you're going to align your resources accordingly. So our mission and vision statement should really identify and prioritize what our most important initiatives and programs are. We need to think about sequencing, so short-term and long-term. And we're going to be involved with the strategic planning process going forward to really align our resources. So we want to make sure that we have the capacity to do the things that we need to do, and that we're efficient, and that we're not overreaching, but at the same time, we're fulfilling mission-driven programming across everything that we do. So the mission vision statement, once this is adopted, the next stage will be incorporating this into the long-term strategic planning and thinking about what we're able to do as a community. So in terms of next steps, as I said, we know there's not everyone who's part of the UUFE membership participating in this Zoom session this morning. We're going to offer another Zoom session shortly, so people who couldn't make this meeting will be able to see and participate in the meeting in the future and present the information. We'll have a conversation, or not a conversation, but it'll be presented, these ideas, as part of the annual meeting. And then, as I mentioned, the hope is to have a vote in person in the fall of 2021. We think this is really important to do as a community. We don't want to do this virtually, so we're holding off officially voting on this until later on in the process itself. And as I said, this presentation today is essentially designed just to give people information, but we're hoping to have a conversation and dialogue and discussion with everyone during the coffee hour. So during the coffee hour, our hope is that we can have a discussion with people, answer any questions. People can look at what is here and make suggestions about it. We'll post the statements themselves, and we'll talk more about that. So I hate lecturing. I am a teacher who is much more student-oriented, and the idea of just talking at people rather than with people makes me ill. So I'm looking forward to the conversation after the fact, and we hope that you're all able to join us for the coffee hour. But as I said, this is not the only opportunity to do so. So we'll be having more conversations about this as we go forward. Thank you all. I appreciate your patience and time.
And thank you, Rob, for lending your professional skills, both as a teacher and a leader of discussions like this for nonprofit organizations, to help us through this discussion, which certainly is partly about the businesses of UUFE, but also interweaves it with our personal lives, our spiritual lives, and our vibrant community. Yeah. Thanks for doing that for us. Yes, we hope you join us.
Tom suggested that we email the PowerPoint presentation slides, and I'm happy to do that as well, so everyone can take a look at those more closely. So in addition to the actual statements, we can send the information with the process for people.
Great, thanks. So everybody look for those in our emails. And we hope you join us for coffee hour right after this. Now, I'm going to bring our meeting to a close by extinguishing our chalice with these words, which in fact are adapted from our draft mission, or it's the mission statement. These are the words: may we always be an open religious community that strives for social justice, that values diversity and cares for one another, and also protects the natural world in which we live. And now I'm going to share my screen one last time and play the final musical number, which is another rendition of the same song, Building a New Way. And then after the music is over, that does conclude our meeting, and we'll go right into our Zoom service, which is right here on this same Zoom channel.
We are building a new way. We are building We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way.